Welcome to Bonita's Kitchen and thank you for joining us. What I'm going to be making today is a delicious roaster of chicken thigh stew with a Duff pastry. This is a delicious recipe that I'm going to be showing you today and not a lot of work. And the reason why I said in a roaster, you can do this one also in a boiler on your stovetop, but we're going to be doing it today, making this, cooking it in the oven. So I'm going to explain all of that to you, tell you how much you would need. So let's get started. So our chicken thigh stew today is going to be made up of a lot of different simple ingredients. Today we're going to be using about 6 to 8 chicken thighs. I'm going to be using 6. You can use 8 in this roaster. We're going to be using the vegetables is carrot, turnip, parsnip. We're going to be using potato, celery, and it's cut up in stew sized chunks. We're going to be using some vegetable broth. We're going to be using chicken flavor, which is a chicken oxo or seasoning. We're going to be using some thyme, the leaves of celery, flour, some peas. You could use frozen or canned, butter. We're going to use snips of our green onion, some sea salt, black pepper. You could use white pepper as well. And we're going to be using a medium chopped onion. So I'm going to let you refer to our recipe, which will be posted under this link if you need to know the amounts. So what I'm going to be using here today is an old-fashioned roaster with a lid. You can use any type of oven-safe roaster or dish. And like I said, this is a big roaster, a large roaster, and because I want to make enough for 6 to 8 people. So what I'm going to do now is strain off my vegetables and we're going to toss this right into the roaster. Okay, so as you can see, these vegetables are cut in nice big chunks. I'm going to toss them on into my roaster. I'm not going to fry them or anything first. I'm just going to assemble them in there. They're going to look like that. And then what I'm going to do is put my thyme over the top here, pepper, sea salt, sorry, and pepper, and the oxo chicken flavor. And like you said, you can get whatever flavor there you like. And then I'm going to toss this around. So what I'm going to be doing now is tossing in about 6 cups of vegetable broth. I'm going to leave a couple of cups here and I'm going to tell you why in a second. And depending on the size of a roaster that you're going to be using, you can add more or less. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So the only vegetables that I added into the roaster was all of the vegetables I had soaked in the pot, which was your potato, carrot, turnip, parsnip, celery. And I'm going to be putting the peas in at almost the very last. We're going to be putting the celery tops in almost at the very last when we go to put our duff on top. And the same thing with the little amount of green onion. The onions I'm leaving because I'm going to fry them and I'm going to tell you a bit about that. And the chicken I'm leaving right now because I'm going to fry that. But right now we'll put all of these vegetables that's in the broth in our oven at a 375 degree heat, preheated oven, and that'll be for about 30 minutes until we do the next step. So what we'll do next, while we're waiting for 30 minutes on our vegetables, I guess baking and roasting in the oven, we're going to start frying our chicken thighs, and I want to part cook them before I put them into that roaster. So let's get started on that. So what we're going to be adding into our frying pan is a tablespoonful of butter. I'm going to let that melt down first. Then I'm going to be adding in my chicken thighs. I took the skin off and I took the trimmings around. I left a little bit of the marbling on there, which is the skin, because I do want that flavor as well. and I got the bone still left in there because I want that. Now if you don't want to put the full chicken thighs in with your stew, you can cut it in half or cut it in pieces, but I want to do it this way, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So what I'm going to do now is season each side. First I'll put some black pepper seasoned over the top, because it's nice to season up the chicken before it goes into the boiler or the roaster with the vegetables, because you want that to be flavored as well. Now the sea salt is optional. You could use salted butter, and then you won't have to use the sea salt. And then what I'm going to do is fry it about 3-4 minutes on each side, and then I'll tell you what's next after that. So what I'm going to do now is flip those chicken thighs over onto the other side, and it's not necessarily for making it golden brown or anything. This is just, I want to part cook these chicken thighs before they go in with the vegetables, because I don't want to have the raw chicken going on top of that. But season both sides of the chicken with the salt and pepper, and like I said, you could leave the salt out if you want to use salted butter, and then let it start to cook on that side for the same amount of time, 3 to 4 minutes. So now while we're waiting for our chicken to feel the love on both sides, get about 3 to 4 minutes cooking time, what I'm going to do is start making the Duff pastry that we're going to be putting over our delicious chicken thigh stew. And I'll show you what all that is. Now again, I'm going to have the recipe that's posted down below this video, but I will give you the ingredients for this pastry, which is 2 cups of sifted flour, 4 teaspoonfuls of baking powder, 1 tablespoonful of sugar, white sugar, and about 1/4 teaspoonful of sea salt. So we're going to mix that around just to blend it all evenly in with the flour. I'll be putting in here 1/2 cup of cold butter. You could use unsalted or salted, depending on what you like to use. And then we're going to mash it with our pastry masher just to blend it all in through. Now what I'm going to do is get back there to my chicken and get that taken off that frying pan. So this is all you need to do there, is just let it cook on both sides just for that 3 to 4 minutes, and if you forget it a little longer, it's okay. So now I'm going to pop that into a bowl and start frying our onions. And I'm also going to be taking the juice that the chicken made there, because that's flavor and you want that for your chicken thigh stew as well. So I'm just tossing it on into the bowl. Okay, so that's the chicken. So now what I'm going to do is put my pot back on the fryer, or the damper I should say, and start my onions. So we're going to be putting a tablespoonful of butter in the frying pan. You could use less if you want on it, the chicken or the onions, but tablespoonful works best for me. And then put in about a medium chopped onion, and just in small pieces. It don't have to be stew sized pieces. And we're going to put a little bit of pepper. I say a little bit, just a pinch, just for flavor. I'm not going to be putting in any salt at this time because I don't want to pull out the moisture. And I'm going to get this cooking till it's nice and soft. Now back to our pastry. So after you got all the butter, just blend it in through the flour and the dry ingredients. I usually get a fair amount on my counter as well. I'm going to take the butter off my masher. I'm going to be using about 1/2 cup of evaporated milk. I'm using carnation milk here, but you could use a no name. It doesn't matter. And I may need to use a little bit more to blend it all together. But we'll just gauge as we go. So what we're going to do is mix this around. So it could take a little bit more because I want this pastry to be a nice soft texture, not runny. I'm going to be pouring in 1/4 cup more into my mixture, and then mix that around, and then I'm going to blend it in with my hands. So as you can see, what I'm doing here now is just forming our pastry into a dough ball. So you can mix it on in through. Again, if you need to use more carnation milk, you can. This is one of these pastries that you gotta go with the texture you want. So you want a little bit more softer or a little bit more wet, just add more milk. So that's all we need to do there. So all we need to do here now is just mix these onions around just a little bit here, because I only want them part cooked. I don't want them to be like golden brown all around, because I want to put this in the stew and I don't want to have these big brown chunks in there. What I'm going to do now is pour in the 2 tablespoonfuls of flour. Be careful it don't pop up in your face. Sometimes when you put it into a hot pan it does that. And we're going to be making a bit of a roux with our flour and our onion mixture. So then you're going to be pouring in your vegetable broth or vegetable stock, and you could use about 2 cups of that, and just to make a little bit of a paste, because this paste is going to thicken your stew while it's baking in the oven. So we're just going to do that until it gets thick. Okay, so after that's your paste with your onions and flour is a little thick, you can turn it down on warm. So what I'm going to do now is reach for our roaster, and we're going to put our chicken back in there. We're going to pour in our onions and our broth from this roux, and add in the rest of the ingredients there and put it back in the oven again. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Okay, so now I'm going to get my roaster. Buzzer just went off, 30-minute mark, and then I'm going to show you what that looks like. Oh my goodness, now that looks delicious. Okay, so now what we're going to do is add in our chicken thighs. I'm going to put it right on in to, I can dump it in I guess, but I'm afraid that it's going to splash up over my face and of course up over Raymond. I don't want that. No. Now I'm only using 6 chicken thighs there, but again, you could use as much as you like. I think what I'm going to do, this sauce that's there from the chicken, I'm going to pour it back in with my onions, and I'm going to stir that together with the roux. And now we're going to reach for our onions. Okay, so after I put that in there, I just turned the heat on to it a little bit more just to get it thick, and you see the texture. I'm just going to pour this on over our chicken thigh stew, and now we'll add in some more ingredients. This is getting exciting. That roux and the onions in with our chicken thighs and our vegetables, of course. Now again, I got the recipe down under this video, but and all the ingredients is there, but this is a cup of fresh or canned peas, green peas. And then I'm not going to throw all of this in there, but this is the celery leaves. I want to keep a little bit for garnish, and as well the green onion. You could use as much as you want, and I want to leave a little bit for garnish. So I'm going to mix that around, and now I'm going to put, actually I'm going to test my broth, and then I'm going to put the lid back on. So I just want to have a little taste of my broth, my juice there. So delicious. It's got all of those flavors just blending in there together. I know Raymond is back there just saying, me too, me too.
I was just waiting for you to do that.
No, I'm not going to do anything else. Only put the lid back on my roaster. We're going to put it back in the oven now on a 375-degree heat for another 40 minutes. So meet me back here when that's up, and then we're going to put our pastry over the top. Welcome back to Bonita's Kitchen, and our chicken thigh stew is almost baked at its 40-minute mark, but if you want to leave it for a little bit longer, that's fine as well. But what I wanted to do, I wanted to get working on our pastry, show you a little more about that. You can do it 2 ways, and I want to show you that. So after you shaped out your Duff pastry, and you got it nice and firm like this, you're going to put a little dusting on your board. Now you can do this two ways. You can have this a little more stickier, and you can just dollop it out onto your stew, or you could roll it out like I'm going to do here. Now, and as well as another two ways, you can roll it full form and put it over the top of your roaster with the lid off, of course, or you can do it in separate pieces. And I'm going to do it in separate pieces because the reasons for that is I want to have one piece of the duff on each section, and then when you scoop it up, you got that with your stew, and you'll see that on the end result. So I'm not going to over roll this. I'm just going to roll it enough to cut out about 6 or 8 pieces. You as well could use any size of cutter you want. I'm going to have mine about, I guess, about 3 inches round, and that will be just perfect. But like you said, you could have it smaller, or you can do the full amount and put the full pastry over the top of your stew. So after you've cut that much out, if you got some more dough left over, just bring it all together like this, roll it back out again, and then we'll cut out a couple of more. Okay, I'm going to reach for my roaster now and check our chicken thigh stew. I'm excited to get that going. Of course, the next stage to making this delicious stew, and for any time of the year, not just in the winter or fall. I love it summertime as well. Okay, I'm going to show you what that looks like. Okay, so now look at this. Isn't that ever delicious? I'm going to give a little mixing so you can see all the vegetables in there, and everything is, well, I'm going to say pretty much cooked. I'm going to take off some of this broth. I'm going to make another little bit of a roux. We're going to put more flour and water in there to thicken this before we put our pastries on. Okay, so I'm just going to take off maybe a cup or 2 cups of my broth, because I always put a little bit more liquid in there when I'm making a stew. And what I'm going to do now is add some more flour into about 1/4 cup of water. Let's say about 2 to 3 tablespoonfuls. And this is your thickening for your stew. And then I'm going to shake this up a little bit to get the lumps out. So I'm going to put my roaster back on the stove top, because what I want to do is start it boiling a little bit to add in our extra flour to make it thick before I put those duffs on there, those pastry duffs, because I don't want for it to fall into the liquid. I'm going to show you what that looks like. As you can see, we got a gallop there, and that's what we want, so we could make our stew just a little thicker. Because like I said, we don't want for our duff pastry to fall into our stew, and then we're not going to have that delicious pastry for the top. So just keep blending in the rest of the flour roux until it starts to thicken. I got to hold my pot because I don't want for it to fall off this little damper. And then I'm going to show you the next step. Take the stew off this small damper, push this to the side, and now I'm going to show you the next step. Okay, so after you got your chicken thigh stew nice and thick like this, you can see, look, the thickness of it, and that's a perfect consistency. What you're going to do, the juice that you're taking off from this, you can keep, of course, because you're going to use that for putting back into it if you want to thin it out a little bit more after you take your duff pastry off. So you're just going to put these right on top like this. We're going to put it back into the oven on a 375 degree heat for another 15 to 20 minutes till this is a golden brown. And then I'm going to show you what that looks like. Absolutely delicious. So again, in the middle of the oven on the center rack, and don't put the lid on this time. We're going to let it get a nice golden brown. So I'm just going to put it in the oven like this, and then meet me back here and we're going to see the final result. Exciting. Now here comes my favorite part, of course, is when it's baked or cooked and ready to put into a plate or a bowl and have. So I'm going to remove it now from the oven. I'm going to show you what it looks like, and we'll get to have a little taste. Oh my goodness. This is so delicious, and the smell is amazing. We can't wait to have some. So now this is what our chicken thigh stew with Duff pastry it looks like. Now what you can do there now, you can take all these little I guess little Duff pastry discs, put onto a plate, and then add some more broth, or you can serve it right away if you got guests that's there. What I'm going to do now is take up a nice helping and show you what it looks like. Of course, on here I got a chicken thigh and I got the pastry, and over here I've got to scoop up. I will move one of the discs because I want to get some of the vegetables and scoop up here into my plate. Just look at this delicious stew, this chicken thigh stew, good for any time of the season. Look how delicious. I'm gonna put an extra Duff onto my plate here. Also, if you want to, the liquid that you took off of the stew, you can add back into the stew and just mix it around if you need more liquid to serve with. That's it. Now I'm going to have a taste. What I'm going to do is add in a little bit of the celery leaves and a bit of the green onion, because that just flavors it up as well. And you know, anytime that you're making a meal, having a little jazzy, showing it to your company is always nice as well. And I'm going to pour myself up a cup of tea, and I'm going to have a taste. I can see sitting down now, having some of this. The pastry Duff is delicious too. I'm going to break it in half and show you what it looks like. Delish. I'm just going to take the one that I just broke there and just look at the inside, and all that steam cooked perfectly and so delicious. I know Raymond is waiting for these. We're going to have a little sip of tea to wash down that little piece of my pastry. So delicious. Well, I hope you're interested in making this delicious roaster of chicken thigh stew with a Duff pastry. I mean, how delicious is that? And those little pieces of pastry on the top, I like doing it that way because it almost resembles a tea bun here in Newfoundland and Labrador, or a tea biscuit. You can call it either way. It's so good. It must make. And also remember that the recipe for this delicious meal today is posted in under this video. Just hit the see more link. It'll drop that box down and you could read the recipe for all of the ingredients. I didn't give you the amount at the beginning because I figured you can refer to that, because you might want a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on how much you're going to make for you and your family. And as well, it's the link there for subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, we would be so excited if you would do so. We got so many recipes that you could view and make, and if nothing, you can sit and enjoy them with a nice cup of tea. You can visit us on our webpage, www.bonitaskitchen.com. There's a search bar there. You can just type in what you're looking for. It'll pop up. Also, visit us on our Facebook page. Send us a message on either one of them, or just right here on YouTube. We'd love to see you and hear from you, of course. So thank you for joining us here today for chicken thigh stew with a Duff pastry. From our kitchen to yours, you have a wonderful day. If you're visiting Newfoundland and Labrador, don't forget to include the beautiful town of put a grave in your travels and visit us again on Bonita's Kitchen.
Join us by the sea, a journey in culinary, always an open door. Bonita's Kitchen to yours. Bonita's Kitchen.